As you're listening, please feel free to pause and rewind the video so that way you can make sure that you're reading at your own pace, and that way you can stop and take notes if you need to. Okay? So, the heron and the hummingbird. Please be sure to follow along with me as I'm reading. It may appear to be an unlikely friendship. The great heron was tall and deliberate, while Hummingbird was so small and quick. Yet, they tolerated each other's company and spent much time by the lakes and streams. Although they had their differences, there was one thing they both enjoyed immensely: eating fish. As the days passed, Hummingbird became increasingly concerned, and he finally announced that there just wasn't enough fish in the world for the both of them. He came up with a contest plan which would award the winner all of the fish and force the loser to find another source of food. Across the land and water by a faraway river lay an old dead tree. The first to arrive would be the winner and enjoy the bounty of the world's fish. The race began the next morning, and Hummingbird speedily zipped around the heron in a pestering manner. However, the large heron ignored Hummingbird and flew slowly but steadily forward. Hummingbird was so much quicker than Heron that the race appeared to be exceedingly unfair. However, Hummingbird was distractible, and sure enough, the flowers with their sweet nectar smell attracted him to investigate and sip. As Hummingbird enjoyed the nectar, he noticed the heron moving on ahead of him, but he was not worried. As soon as he had his fill, he quickly sped ahead of the heron again and took the lead. By night-time, Hummingbird grew weary from the unceasing beating of his wings during the day. He needed a rest, so he found a soft perch in a nearby tree down below and relaxed while Heron slowly and steadily pressed on through the night. In the morning, Hummingbird woke to find Heron far ahead, but he was not worried. He beat his wings and flew so fast he seemed like a blur. It didn't take him long to pass Big Heron. This pattern continued for the next 3 days. Heron never rested day or night, but flew slowly, comfortably, and steadily. Hummingbird zoomed ahead for a short time, but then became distracted with the sweet flowers and the need to rest. On the morning of the 4th day, Hummingbird knew the finish to the old tree by the river must be near. He also knew he must be far behind Heron, having spent the majority of the night resting on a comfortable perch while Heron flew on. But he was not worried. Just as he had done so many times before, he knew he could catch Heron. He was so refreshed and rejuvenated from his rest, he thought he could catch up especially quickly. As Hummingbird sped on, he became increasingly worried, for he couldn't see the heron ahead of him. He soon saw the finish line, the old dead tree by the river. To his horror, Heron was perched on top of the tree, looking proud and dignified. Heron had won the race by flying straight and steady through the night while Hummingbird slept. So, from that day forward, the heron owned all the fish in the rivers and lakes. Hummingbird could no longer eat the fish. Instead, he spent his days sipping the nectar from flowers, as he had done so many times during the race. Check your growth. Instructions. Use the word bank to write the word in the blank spaces on the plot diagram. So here are your words over here. Your words are climax, exposition, falling action, resolution, and rising action. And you're going to fill those in those blank spaces. Second half instructions. Draw a line to match the vocabulary word with the definition. There's falling action, climax, exposition, resolution, and rising action. You're going to need to match it with one of these on this side. So I'm going to read them to you. This first one says, events that happen in the story that moves the action along as the problem builds up and causes complication. The turning point of the story where the action of the story builds. All the loose ends of the plot and conflicts are being taken care of. This event occurs at the beginning of a story. The character's setting and main conflict are introduced. The story comes to a reasonable end. The action winds down and the problem is solved at the end of the story or passage. So you're going to need to match these words with the correct vocabulary word. How did the author organize the story? A, by comparing the differences in the size of the birds. B, by describing the effect of the heron from smelling the flowers. C, by sequencing the plot's events that led to the heron's win. D, by contrasting different ways that birds can fly. What is the theme of this story? A person is better to mind his own business. B, slow and steady wins the race. C, it's best to look before you leap. D, appearances can be deceptive. Number 3. The Heron and the Hummingbird is an example of which genre of fiction? A, traditional literature. B, realistic fiction. C, fantasy. D, historical fiction. Number 4. Which of the following is the best summary of the story? A, Heron and Hummingbird got along very well. They ate an immense amount of fish every day. However, Hummingbird became very worried about there eventually not being enough fish for the both of them. So he came up with an idea to have a race. The winner of the race would get all the supply of fish, and the loser would have to leave and search for another spot to fish. When the race began, Hummingbird quickly flew past the heron. B, Heron and Hummingbird got along well eating fish. Hummingbird became worried about a lack of fish being available and came up with a contest. Hummingbird zipped through the race until he started getting distracted with flowers, and then raced again until he needed rest. He became so tired that he fell asleep while Heron slowly won the race. C, Hummingbird flew extremely fast during the race to try to beat the heron. The heron went very slowly and steady. Eventually, Hummingbird would get distracted by the sweet flowers and then had to flap his wings even harder to catch up. Since he kept speeding ahead, he was getting tired very quickly and had to pause several times for breaks. This kept happening over and over until finally on the 4th day, the hummingbird rested on a comfortable perch while the heron flew on.